You have until tonight to get out." My brother-in-law, Kevin, didn't even have the decency to look me in the eye when he said it. He was too busy pouring a glass of expensive scotch, my husband's favorite brand, onto the coffee table I had scrubbed just that morning, 3 days after burying his mother. 3 days after I closed Beatrice's eyes for the last time. And this was my severance package. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Because, honey, let me tell you, what I'm about to share isn't just a story about greed. It's a story about what happens when you push a loyal woman too far and she realizes she has claws. "Tonight?" I asked, looking at the suitcases already waiting by the door. Kevin had packed them for me while I was at the grocery store. "You said I had time." "Plans change, Martha," Jessica chimed in, checking her phone. "The contractors are coming tomorrow at 7 a.m. We can't have you lingering." "A home, Jim, in the room where Beatrice had died, holding my hand." "I was your mother's sole caretaker for over a decade," I said, the words tasting like ash. "This is my home." "You were a freeloader," Kevin corrected, finally looking at me with cold, dead eyes. "You lived here rent-free. You traded labor for room and board. That's a transaction, not a relationship. And the transaction is over." He slid a single car key across the mahogany table. It hit the wood with a dull clack. Mother left the house, the investments, everything to her biological children. As for you, she wanted you to have the car. I looked at the key. It was for the 2008 Honda Accord sitting in the driveway, the rust bucket. The air conditioning was broken, and it smelled permanently of the peppermint candies Beatrice used to suck on. A 15-year-old car for 12 years of my life, my sacrifice, my devotion, valued at less than the price of scrap metal. "There must be a mistake," I said. "Beatrice wouldn't what?" Jessica laughed. "Wouldn't realize you were just using her? Face it, Martha, the casino is closed. Take the car and go." The audacity was breathtaking, but what hurt more was the silence coming from the corner. "Sam?" I asked. "My son, my only child." He was standing by the kitchen island, staring intently at his phone. "Did you know about this?" He finally looked up. In his eyes, I didn't see shock. I saw guilt. "Mom, Uncle Kevin explained everything," he mumbled. It's complicated legal stuff. But hey, at least you have the car, right? It runs." In that moment, my heart turned to stone. I realized I hadn't just lost my home. I had lost my son. Somewhere along the way, he decided it was easier to be rich than to be good. "I see," I said. My voice was calm now, scarily calm. "So that's it then." I didn't cry. Tears are for people who have hope, and I had none left. I packed my life into 2 suitcases, photos of my husband, my wedding ring, the rosary my mother left me, and Beatrice's old leather Bible, the one I used to read to her when the pain got too bad. Everything else, the quilts I'd sewn, the garden I'd planted, I left behind, let them rot in it. I walked out without saying goodbye, especially not to Sam. I got into the Honda. The engine roared to life with a noise like a dying animal. I drove away, but I didn't go far. I couldn't afford a motel. Kevin knew that. I drove until the houses thinned out and the street lights got sparse. Not the hospital, not a motel, somewhere Kevin wouldn't think to look first. The parking lot behind the all-night laundromat was half empty and bright enough to feel unsafe, but not bright enough to feel seen. I killed the engine and sat there, hands on the wheel, listening to my own breathing like it belonged to a stranger. I needed something steady, something familiar. I reached into my bag for Beatrice's old recipe binder, the battered one with flour-dusted tabs and her handwriting in every margin. I used to read those pages to her when the pain got sharp, because food memories were the only thing that still made her smile. The binder slipped out of my numb hands. Thud. A thin plastic sleeve slid loose from the back pocket, something I'd never noticed in 12 years. Not a letter, not a ticket. A storage unit keycard. On the card, a label maker strip read, Unit 14C, paid through October 15th. And beneath it, in Beatrice's shaky handwriting, just 4 words. Don't trust what's spoken. My throat went dry. October 15th. 3 months ago, the same day Kevin insisted he'd handled her appointments. Why would a dying woman pay for a storage unit in cash and hide the key where only I would touch it? I stared at that little card until the laundromat lights blurred. Kevin and Jessica thought the game was over. They thought they had won because they held the deed. But Beatrice hadn't left me money. She'd left me a location. And tomorrow morning, I wasn't going to look for an apartment. I was going to Unit 14C, and I was going to find out what she hid where her children would never think to look. I woke up to the sound of rain hammering against the roof of my Honda. The windows were fogged, and for a split second, I forgot where I was. Then my hand hit the steering wheel. Reality came rushing back, cold, loud, and personal. I checked the dashboard clock. 8:30 a.m. "Okay, Martha," I whispered. "Move." The storage facility was on the edge of town, chain-link fences, security cameras, and a sign that promised safety in peeling red paint, Unit 14C. That little keycard felt heavier than my wedding ring ever did. Inside the office, the clerk barely glanced up. "ID," she said. I handed it over. She compared my face to my license, like she was deciding whether I deserved to breathe. "You're listed as an authorized contact," she finally muttered, sliding a clipboard toward me. "Sign. And if you're here for a unit in someone else's name, you don't touch anything illegal. You call law enforcement. Got it?" I signed anyway, because they'd already made me a problem. I was done asking permission to survive. The gate buzzed open. I drove in, following the rows of metal doors until I found 14C. The lock wasn't fancy, just old, familiar, like something Beatrice picked because it wouldn't look important. The door screeched when I rolled it up. At first, I thought the unit was empty. Then I saw it, pushed deep against the back wall like a secret ashamed of itself. A rusted metal lunchbox, dented, scratched, locked with a heavy padlock. No note, no key, just the box. I hauled it out, shut the door, and rolled it down again. I stared at the rusty box. This was it? This was the breadcrumb? I took it back to the car. The rain was coming down harder now. I sat in the driver's seat with the heavy metal box on my lap. I didn't have a key, but I was done playing by the rules. I popped the trunk and grabbed the tire iron. "Sorry, Beatrice," I muttered. I wedged the iron under the padlock and pulled. The metal groaned. I pulled harder, channeling every ounce of anger, every bit of betrayal I felt towards Kevin and Jessica. Snap! The old lock gave way. I took a deep breath and lifted the lid. Inside, there was no treasure, no gold, just 3 things: a thick black ledger book, a digital voice recorder, and a folded letter addressed to me. I picked up the ledger first. It wasn't a diary. It was a logbook, the kind accountants use. I opened it to a random page. January 7th, 2:45 a.m. Kevin entered my room. He thought I was sedated. I watched through half-closed eyes as he took the signature stamp from the top drawer. He used it on the modification papers. I heard him whisper to Jessica on the phone, "It's done." I turned the page. February 3rd. Jessica intercepted the mail. She hid the bank statements from the offshore account. They are funneling the dividends. Amount, $45,000. My hands shook. Page after page. Dates, times, amounts, crimes. Beatrice hadn't just been dying, honey. She had been working. While she lay in that bed, looking frail and confused, she had been documenting every single theft. I put down the ledger and picked up the letter. My name, Martha, was written on the front in shaky cursive. I unfolded it. "Martha, if you are reading this, it means they finally did it. They threw you out. I knew they would. They are predictable in their greed. I couldn't give you this evidence while I was alive. If they knew I had it, they would have destroyed it, and maybe me. So I hid it in the one place they wouldn't look. A storage unit, Unit 14C. You think you are powerless. You think you are just the help. But look in this box. I have given you the hammer. Now go find the nail. Take this box to Arthur Sterling. Don't call him. Go to him. He knows what to do. And Martha, I loved you like a daughter. Now go make them pay. Beatrice." Tears stung my eyes. I loved you like a daughter. She'd spent 12 years holding back the truth. But near the end, she stopped trusting anyone's memory. She left a trail that couldn't be argued with. My phone rang, shattering the silence. Kevin. I stared at the screen. The man who had stolen my home. The man who had mocked my poverty. I wiped my eyes. I looked at the ledger full of his crimes. I looked at the rusted box. For the first time in 3 days, my hands stopped shaking. I picked up the phone. "Martha," Kevin barked, not even saying hello. "Where are you? Jessica says Mother's Bible is missing from the inventory. Did you take it?" I looked at the Bible on the passenger seat, the Bible that had held the key card. "I don't know, Kevin," I said, my voice steady, cold, dangerous. "Don't play games with me. Bring it back, or I'll add theft to the list of reasons we're suing you." "Suing me?" I let out a short, dry laugh. "You're worried about a Bible, Kevin? It's a state property. You should be worried about other things," I said softly. "Like dates, and timestamps, and signature stamps." There was a silence on the other end. A heavy, terrified silence. "What did you say?" Kevin whispered. I said, "I'm done being the help, Kevin." I hung up. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat next to the Bible. I started the engine. The old Honda roared to life, and this time it didn't sound like a dying animal. It sounded like a tank. I wasn't going to a motel. I wasn't going to cry. I put the car in gear. "Hang on, Beatrice," I said to the empty car. "We're going to see a lawyer." Sterling and Associates was located on the top floor of a glass building downtown, a place where the air smelled of expensive leather and intimidation. I walked in at 10 a.m. I was still wearing yesterday's clothes. My hair was messy from sleeping in the car, and in my hands I clutched a rusted, dented metal lunchbox like it was the crown jewels. The receptionist looked at me, then at the dirty box, with undisguised horror. "Can I help you?" she asked, her nose wrinkling slightly. "I'm here to see Arthur Sterling," I said, my voice hoarse but steady. "Tell him Martha is here, and tell him I brought the lunchbox." Her eyes widened. She picked up the phone, whispered something, and seconds later, the double doors swung open. A man stepped out. He was older, maybe 70s, wearing a bow tie and eyes that looked like they'd seen everything and found it amusing. "Mrs. Williams?" He didn't look at my messy hair. He looked straight at the rusted box in my hands. A smile spread across his face, a genuine one. "So you found the key card," he said, nodding at the box. "Beatrice hoped you would, but she knew it wasn't easy." "She left a trail," I said. "I just followed it. Please, come in." In his office, Mr. Sterling didn't offer me a seat immediately. He cleared a space on his pristine, polished mahogany desk. "Put it down," he said softly. I placed the rusted lunchbox on the expensive wood. The contrast was stark. Iron and rust against luxury. It looked like a bomb, and in a way, I suppose it was. "Do you know why she locked this away?" Sterling asked, touching the dented lid. "To hide it from Kevin and Jessica?" "Partly, but mostly it was a test." He looked at me, his eyes intense. "Beatrice knew her children. She knew they would strip you of everything. She knew they would leave you with nothing but that old Honda." He paused. "She figured if you were desperate enough to search that car and smart enough to find the key card, then you were tough enough to handle what's inside." "She was testing my spine," I whispered. "And you passed," Sterling said. "Now, let's see what she has to say." He opened the lunchbox. He took out the black ledger and the digital voice recorder. "The ledger contains the crimes," Sterling said grimly. "But this," he held up the recorder, "this is the explanation." He pressed the play button. Click. Static crackled through the quiet office. And then, a voice. Raspy, weak, but sharp as a pruning shear. "Is the red light on?" "Okay." "Beatrice," hearing her voice fill the room. "Honey," it felt like a ghost had just pulled up a chair beside me. I gripped the arms of my chair to keep from shaking. "Hello, Martha. If you're listening to this, then I'm gone." She coughed, a dry, hacking sound that made my own chest ache. "And if you're listening to this, it means you found Unit 14C. Good. I knew you were the smart one." A pause, the sound of her sipping water. "My children. They threw you out, didn't they? Took the house, took the accounts. Probably acted like they were doing you a favor by letting you keep that old car." I squeezed my hands together. "I've known what they are for a long time, Martha. Weeds. Parasitic vines that choke the life out of the host. But vines can't see what's happening at the roots. I've been awake, and I've been writing." Sterling pointed to the black ledger on the desk. "That book in front of you," Beatrice's voice continued. "That is my insurance policy. I didn't just document their lies, Martha. I documented you." My stomach dropped. "Me?" "September 3rd, Beatrice read. "I had a nightmare. Screamed for my mother. Martha sat with me until 4 a.m. She thinks I didn't know, but I knew." November 17th. "I struck Martha today during an episode, slapped her face. She told me she walked into a door. She lied to protect my dignity. Who does that? Only a daughter does that." Tears were streaming down my face now, honey, hot and fast. I hadn't cried when I lost the house. I hadn't cried in the freezing car, but I was crying now. "I never said it enough," her voice wavered. "But I loved you, Martha. You were the daughter I should have had, and I'm sorry I had to test you. I'm sorry I had to leave you in that parking lot. But I needed to know you would fight, because what comes next? You're going to need to be a soldier. Open the ledger, Martha. Read the first page. That's where the war begins." The recording clicked off. The silence in the office was deafening. I wiped my face with my sleeve. I looked at the black book. "She planned all of this," I whispered. "For years," Sterling confirmed. "She knew she was dying. She knew she couldn't fight them herself, so she gathered the ammo, and she kept it locked away until you were ready." I reached out and opened the ledger. The first page wasn't a diary entry. It was a log of a crime. January 7th, 2:45 a.m. Kevin entered my room. I read the words. Then I read them again. My sadness began to harden into something else, something cold, something heavy. "He stole the signature stamp," I said, looking up at Sterling. "He did," Sterling nodded, "and Beatrice saw him do it." "Is this enough?" I asked. "Is this enough to stop them?" Sterling smiled. It wasn't a kind smile anymore. It was a lawyer's smile, sharp, dangerous. "Martha, this ledger is just the map. Beatrice left us something else, something she mailed to my office for safekeeping 2 weeks ago." He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a stack of glossy photographs. "She called this the kill shot." He slid the first photo across the desk. "You ready to see what Kevin has really been up to? Because, honey, you are not going to believe what was in those pictures. Mr. Sterling offered to pay for a hotel, but I refused. I didn't want charity, I wanted independence. So I drove the Honda to the Sunset Motel on the edge of town. It wasn't the Ritz, but it had a lock on the door and a coffee machine that worked. That was enough for me. I spent the evening spreading the evidence out on the cheap bedspread. The rusted lunchbox, the black ledger, the stack of glossy photos Sterling had given me, and the voice recorder, sitting in the middle like a grenade waiting to go off. I was making tea, because the motel coffee tasted like battery acid, when I heard it. Heavy footsteps outside my door, stopping right at room 12. Bang, bang, bang. "Martha, open the door. I know you're in there." "Kevin." My blood turned cold for a second. Old habits die hard. But then I looked at the bed. I looked at the weapons Beatrice had left me, and the cold turned into something else. It turned into steel. I didn't shove the evidence under the bed this time. I didn't hide it in my suitcase. I left it right there, out in the open. And I unlocked the door. Kevin stood in the flickering fluorescent light of the hallway. He looked wild. His tie was crooked, his face flushed. He looked wildly out of place in his $3,000 suit against the peeling wallpaper of the motel. "What are you doing here?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. He pushed past me into the room, wrinkling his nose at the smell of mildew. "What am I doing here?" "I'm here to save you from yourself, Martha." "Save me?" "I know you went to the storage facility," he spat. "My friend works nearby. He saw your rust bucket of a car parked out front for an hour." He spun around to face me. "What did you find, Martha? Did Mother hide some cash? Some jewelry? Give it to me, and I won't press charges for theft." "Theft?" I laughed. It felt good to laugh. "You're worried about theft, Kevin? It's estate property. Whatever was in that shop belongs to the heirs." "Actually," I said, walking over to the bed, "it belongs to the truth." Kevin's eyes followed my movement. He saw the bed. He saw the rusted lunchbox. He saw the black ledger, and his face went pale. "What is that?" he whispered. "This?" I picked up the ledger. "This is Beatrice's diary. Well, not a diary, more like an accounting log." I opened it to a marked page. "January 7th, 2:45 a.m., I read aloud. "Kevin entered my room. He thought I was sedated. He took the signature stamp from the top drawer." Kevin froze. That's a lie. She was senile." "Is she?" I picked up a photo from the stack Sterling gave me. I tossed it onto the bed. It landed face up, a grainy, black and white security photo. Kevin standing over his mother's bed. Kevin holding a small wooden stamp. "The camera doesn't get senile, Kevin," I said softly. He looked at the photo, then at me. The arrogance drained out of him like water from a cracked cup. Fear took its place, sweating through the silk shirt fear. "Where did you get these?" he choked out. "Does it matter?" I asked. "Does Sam know, Kevin? Does he know you forged his grandmother's will? Does he know you stole her signature stamp while she was drugged?" "Sam understands the situation," he stammered, backing away. "Does he know about the life insurance policy?" I pressed on, stepping closer. "The one you took out 3 years ago? The one recorded in this ledger on page 42? The color drained from his face completely. You can't prove any of this." "I have the ledger," I said, ticking off on my fingers. "I have the photos. I have the forensic analysis from Arthur Sterling." I picked up the voice recorder. "And I have Beatrice's voice, explaining everything." Kevin looked at the recorder like it was a viper. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I smiled at him. "Tell me, Kevin, when the police come tomorrow morning, are you going to tell them your dead mother forged the evidence against herself? The police aren't going to— They're going to arrest you," I cut him off. "Fraud, forgery, conspiracy. That's prison time, sweetheart. Real prison time, not the country club." Kevin's fists clenched. For a second, I thought he might hit me. But he didn't, because underneath the expensive suit and the bluster, Kevin was a coward. He had always been a coward. "You'll regret this," he whispered, backing toward the door. "I swear to God, Martha, you will regret this." "Maybe," I said, holding the door open for him. "But at least I'll be regretting it in my house, while you rot in a cell." He left. I slammed the door, locked it, and leaned against the wood. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I'd done it. For the first time in 12 years, I stood up to him. I looked him in the eye and watched him blink first. My phone buzzed, a text from Sam. "Mom, Uncle Kevin just called me. He sounds crazy. What's going on?" I stared at the screen. My son. Still clueless, still protecting the wolves. I typed back 3 words. "The truth hurts." Then I turned off my phone. I crawled into that lumpy motel bed, surrounded by the evidence that would save my life. And I slept better than I had in years. Tomorrow, the real war would begin. Tomorrow, Kevin and Jessica would learn what it feels like to be pruned. But tonight, I was done being the help. Beatrice had handed me the shears, and I was finally ready to cut the weeds. Chapter 5. The Sound of Justice. The police arrived at my motel at 7 a.m. sharp. 2 uniformed officers, 2 detectives, a forensic accountant, and Arthur Sterling, looking like a man who had waited his entire career for this morning. "Are you ready, Mrs. Williams?" he asked. I looked in the mirror. 60 years old, gray hair, wrinkled face, eyes that had seen too much and cried too often. But today, those eyes had fire in them. "Let's go get my house back." The drive to 4847 Oakwood Lane took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of silence, of my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. When we turned onto my street, I saw it. Kevin's BMW in the driveway, Jessica's Mercedes right behind it. They were in my house, like they owned it, like I was already a ghost. "Stay behind us," Detective Morrison said as we pulled up. "Let us secure the scene." "No," I said, my hand on the door handle. That is my house, Detective. I raised my son in that house. I nursed my husband until his last breath in that house. I am not waiting on the sidewalk. Morrison looked at me. She saw something in my face. Maybe the same fire I saw in the mirror. She nodded. Stay close. The doorbell rang. Echoing through the home, I knew better than my own heartbeat. Footsteps, voices. Then the door swung open. Jessica, wearing a silk robe I didn't recognize, holding a mimosa at 7:30 in the morning. Can I help you? She didn't even look at me. She just stared at the badges. Ma'am, I'm Detective Morrison. We have a warrant to search these premises in connection with an ongoing fraud investigation. Jessica's face went white as the silk she was wearing. Fraud? There must be some mistake. This is my mother's house. My house now. The estate was settled. The estate, Sterling said, stepping into the light, was never settled. The will is a forgery. That's ridiculous. Our lawyer verified. Your lawyer is going to need his own lawyer, Ms. Thompson. Sterling handed her a copy of the forensic report. We have the ledger, we have the photos, and we have a sworn statement from your mother. Jessica's hand trembled. The mimosa sloshed over the rim, staining the carpet, my carpet, and then she saw me. You, she hissed, her voice dripping venom. You did this. No, Jessica, I said, stepping past her into my own foyer. You did this. I'm just finishing it. Kevin was in the living room, my living room, sitting in my husband's favorite chair, again, with a laptop open. He looked up, saw the badges, saw Sterling, saw me, and he laughed, a short, sharp bark of a laugh. Oh, this is rich, he said, standing up. Martha, sweetheart, what is this? You brought the police to my house? It's not your house, Kevin. Actually, it is. I have the deed right here. He waved a folder in the air. Transferred 3 days ago. Legal. Binding. He turned his smirk on Detective Morrison. Officer, I don't know what my confused sister-in-law told you, but she's been under a lot of stress. Grief makes elderly minds unreliable. Perhaps she needs a psychiatric evaluation, not a police escort. The audacity, honey, even now, even surrounded. He was trying to gaslight the police. Mr. Thompson, Detective Morrison said calmly, we have evidence that the will used to transfer this property was forged. Forged? Kevin scoffed. It was notarized, witnessed. The notary died years ago, Sterling cut in, his voice cool as ice. Before he supposedly stamped your document. Kevin's smile flickered, then died. And the signature? Sterling pulled out a photo. This is your mother's real signature. This is the one on your will. They don't match. Because you didn't sign it, did you, Kevin? You stamped it. He held up the security photo we found in the lunchbox evidence. Kevin looming over his drugged mother. Kevin stealing the stamp. And if that isn't enough, I said, stepping forward, we have this. I pulled the digital voice recorder from my purse. Press play, detective. Click. Beatrice's voice filled the room, not from a TV screen, but from the tiny speaker, raspy and undeniable. My name is Beatrice Thompson. My son Kevin stole my signature stamp. He has been betting on my death. It wasn't a video, honey, but in a way it was worse, because without a face to look at, her voice seemed to come from everywhere, from the walls, from the floorboards, from the very air they breathed. Kevin looked like he was going to vomit. "Turn it off!" he screamed. "Turn it off! It's fake! It's AI!" "It's not fake, Kevin," I said softly. "It's your mother, finally having her say." Detective Morrison snapped the handcuffs on his wrists. "Kevin Thompson, you are under arrest for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit theft." "You can't do this!" Kevin screamed, knocking over my lamp as he struggled. "This is my house, my inheritance." "Actually," Sterling said, delivering the final blow, "it's not." He pulled out one last document. 6 months ago, Beatrice transferred the deed into a living trust. Beneficiary, Martha Williams. The room went silent. "She knew," Sterling whispered. "She knew exactly what you would do, and she made sure that the moment you tried to steal from her, everything would transfer to the one person who deserved it." Kevin collapsed onto the sofa. My sofa. "She set us up," he whispered. "Our own mother set us up." "No," I said, standing over him. "She protected me from you. There's a difference." "Get him out of here," Morrison ordered. Jessica went next, sobbing and kicking in her silk robe. "This isn't over. You'll regret this, Martha." The cruiser door slammed shut, and just like that, they were gone. I stood in my living room. The silence was heavy. The air still smelled of Kevin's cologne and Jessica's mimosa. Sterling stood beside me. "How does it feel?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I thought I'd feel victorious, happy." "But you feel empty?" "Something like that." "That's normal," he said gently. "Revenge is satisfying in theory. In practice, it's just sad." My phone rang. Sam. I stared at the screen. My son. "Mom?" His voice was shaking. "Mom, the police just called me. They said Uncle Kevin and Aunt Jessica were arrested. They said fraud, forgery. Mom, what is going on?" "What is going on," I said quietly, "is that your family has been lying to you for years." "Lying about what? I don't understand. Uncle Kevin said—" "I know what he said. He said I was confused, delusional, a burden." My voice hardened. "He said it to you, Sam, and you believed him, without questioning, without checking, without calling me once to ask if it was true." Silence on the line. "Mom, I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There is a difference." That's the hardest part, isn't it? When the people we love choose blindness because it's easier than the truth. "I'm family too," I said, my voice cracking. "I am your mother. I raised you. And when they threw me out like garbage, you stood there and watched. You didn't say a word. I thought you wanted to move. Kevin said you agreed." "Did you ask me? Did you pick up the phone one time in 3 days to ask your own mother what she wanted?" Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then a whisper. "No. No," I repeated. "You didn't. And that is the part I can't forgive, Sam. Not the lying, Kevin did that, but the not asking, that was you." "Mom, please." "Not knowing isn't a sin, Sam, but not caring enough to find out the truth, that is a choice, and choices have consequences." "What does that mean? Mom, what are you saying?" I looked around my empty house, at the lamp on the floor, at my husband's chair. "It means I need time. It means I love you, but I don't trust you. And until I can do both—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "Mom, goodbye, Sam." I hung up. Mr. Sterling left an hour later, and then I was alone, truly alone. I walked through the house. the kitchen where I cooked 10,000 meals, the guest room where I cared for Beatrice. All mine again. I should have been celebrating, sweetheart. I should have been popping champagne. But when I sat in my husband's chair, the one Kevin had claimed, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt tired. My son hadn't called back. My family was in handcuffs. And Beatrice, the woman who loved me enough to orchestrate this entire war from the grave, was gone. I sat in the dark as the sun went down, crying tears I couldn't name. Were they victory tears? Relief tears? Grief tears? I didn't know. Maybe they were all three. I won, honey. I got the house back. But sitting here in the dark, I realized I lost my son to get it. Be honest with me in the comments. Did I go too hard on Sam? He said he didn't know. He begged for forgiveness, and I hung up on him. Was that justice? Or was that just me being cruel? Tell me what you would have done. Because right now, this victory feels a lot like loneliness, and you need to see what happens next. Because surviving the war is one thing, but figuring out how to live in the peace, that's a whole different battle. The courtroom was cold the day they read the verdict. I remember that, honey. The air conditioning hummed too loud, and my fingers felt numb even though it was July. 3 months of testimony. 3 months of listening to Beatrice's raspy voice play over and over again from that little digital recorder. Kevin stood at the defendant's table. He looked thinner, gaunt. For a fleeting second, in that lighting, he almost looked like my late husband. Then the judge spoke, and the resemblance vanished. On the count of fraud in the first degree, guilty. Kevin didn't move. He just stared straight ahead at the empty jury box. On the count of forgery, guilty. Behind me, Jessica made a sound like a wounded animal, a sharp, high-pitched whimper. On the count of conspiracy, guilty. The judge turned to Jessica next. Same charges, same verdict. Guilty, guilty, guilty. When the sentences were announced, 4 years for Kevin, 3 for Jessica, something strange happened. Kevin turned and looked directly at me, not with hatred, not with rage, but with confusion, like he genuinely couldn't understand how this had happened, how his foolproof plan had crumbled, how the woman he dismissed as the help had destroyed him. I held his gaze, sweetheart. I didn't blink. I didn't look away. I let him see exactly who I was, and then the bailiffs took him, and he was gone. Jessica screamed as they dragged her out. Actual screaming, like a toddler denied a toy. "This isn't fair! Martha, tell them! Tell them this isn't fair!" I said nothing. The door closed behind her, and then silence. I sat in that empty courtroom for a long time, just staring at the dust motes dancing in the light. Victory? Relief? Satisfaction? I felt none of those things. I just felt tired. Bone deep, soul deep, tired. Beatrice's voice echoed in my head. "Make them pay, Martha. For both of us. I'd done it. I'd made them pay. So why did I feel so empty?" The house was quiet when I got home. Too quiet. The kind of silence that presses against your ears. I walked from room to room. Kitchen, living room, Beatrice's room. Everything was mine again. And I had absolutely no idea what to do with any of it. For 12 years, my life had a rhythm. Beatrice's meds at 7 a.m., breakfast at 8, bath, nap, dinner, sleep, repeat. Now the rhythm was gone, and I was just Martha, 60 years old, alone in a house full of ghosts. It was Mr. Sterling who saved me. Beatrice didn't leave you this money so you could sit in the dark feeling sorry for yourself, he told me 3 months later, over tea in my kitchen. She left it so you could build something. Like what? Like that bakery you used to talk about, the one you gave up 20 years ago when you started caring for her. I stared at him. I hadn't thought about that dream in a decade. I'm too old to start a business, Arthur. Beatrice didn't think so. That night, I dreamed of Beatrice. She was sitting at the kitchen table, not sick, not dying. She was laughing, getting sticky caramel all over her chin. "Feed them, Martha," she said. "You fed me when no one else would. Now go feed the rest of them." I woke up at 3 a.m. with tears on my face and a fire in my belly. We opened 6 months later. The Beatrice Bakery. Right on Main Street. I used the money Kevin tried to steal to buy the best ovens in the state. I filled the display cases with the recipes Beatrice loved. I didn't bake plain croissants or boring muffins. I baked real comfort food. I made her favorites: sticky pecan buns, dripping with caramel and roasted nuts, and her legendary sour cherry pie, with a crust so flaky it shattered if you looked at it wrong. The bakery started small, a few neighbors, curious locals, but word spread. The smell of fresh yeast and caramelized sugar has a way of healing a neighborhood, honey. Within a year, we were the heartbeat of the town. It wasn't just a place to buy cake, it was a place where people sat, talked, and connected. A place where no one was invisible. Beatrice would have loved it. Sometimes, when the morning sun hits the flour dust in the air, I can feel her there, watching, approving, finally at peace. Sam came back on a rainy Sunday in October. I watched him through the bakery window for 5 minutes. He just stood on the sidewalk, staring at the sign like he was afraid to enter. When he finally pushed the door open, the little bell chimed. He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Mom, can I buy a coffee?" I wiped my hands on my apron. "Coffee is on the house. But if you want to talk, you'll have to wait until I pull these pecan buns out." He waited. He sat at the corner table for 2 hours. When the rush died down, I sat opposite him. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." "I know." "I quit my job," he said. "Moved back here. I want to try to make this right. If you'll let me." I looked at my son, my only child, the boy who stood silent while his uncle destroyed me. "You can come back next week," I said. "Same time." "That's it? Just come back?" "That's it." He came back. Every Sunday. I didn't make it easy, honey. Some weeks we sat in silence. Other weeks, I made him sweep the floors. He never complained, never pushed. He just kept showing up. He started helping in the kitchen, hauling flour sacks, washing dishes, learning how to knead dough until his hands ached. I watched him from a distance, waiting for him to give up, to go back to his easy life, to prove he was still the coward I remembered. He never did. The day I truly forgave him wasn't in a garden. It was in the kitchen at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. We were prepping for the morning rush. The air was thick with the smell of yeast and cinnamon. Sam was wrestling with the dough for the sticky pecan buns. He was covered in flour. It was in his hair, on his apron, even on his nose. He was pounding the dough, frustrated. Sweat was dripping down his forehead. "It's not rising, Mom," he grunted, punching the dough again. "I've been working it for 20 minutes. It's just sitting there." I watched him. He looked so much like he did when he was 5, trying to fix a broken toy by banging it on the floor. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked over. "Stop," I said gently. "It's ruined," he said, stepping back. "I can't get it right." "You're forcing it, Sam," I said. "You can't beat the dough into submission. It's not a fight." I placed my hands on the warm, soft dough. It needs warmth, and it needs time. If you push it too hard, it gets tough. You have to let it rest. Sam looked at the dough. Then he looked at me. His eyes were tired, red-rimmed from months of guilt and hard work. "Are we still talking about the bread?" he asked quietly. I looked at my son, the boy who had made mistakes, the man who was trying to fix them. "No," I said. "We're talking about everything." I reached out and brushed a smudge of flour from his cheek. "Let it rest, Sam. It will rise when it's ready, and so will we." He didn't pull away. He just nodded, swallowing hard. And somewhere in that cloud of flour, under the hum of the ovens, I felt it. The heaviness in my chest began to lift, like yeast working its magic. Hope. That was 2 years ago. The bakery is famous now, not just for the pie, but for Sam's pecan buns. They say they're the softest in the county. Sam runs the front of the house now. He's good with the customers. He smiles more. Sometimes we talk about Kevin. Mostly we don't. We aren't who we used to be. We're something new, something built on harder ground with deeper roots. And that is enough. I'm 63 years old now, and for the first time in my life, I belong to myself. Not to my husband, not to Beatrice, not to my children. Just me. Martha Williams.